For me, I say when you realize you've got one of those inner rivals or demons, throw a saddle on it and put the reins in one hand and get a whip in the other hand and ride that thing like Seabiscuit. Learn to monetize that thing. So when I was a 10-year-old boy, I was insecure. That insecurity fueled me to become one of the top martial artists in what I was doing. At the time, there weren't too many martial artists who were training tier 1 special forces. So you had to break a very high barrier to entry to do that. Well, what gave me the skill to be able to win those contracts? Well, it was my insecurity. My insecurity, I learned at a young age that men respect you if they think you're dangerous. So I knew that the more dangerous I became, the more I would get that void in my soul filled with respect, admiration, praise of man, whatever. And all of a sudden I'm being invited to the big boys table. But here's the problem. There came a point in my life where I realized that being driven and fueled to be one of the best at what I do because I'm insecure, that is no longer a legitimate reason. And so I didn't stop what I was doing. I didn't stop my pursuit at being the best at what I was doing. I just changed my why.
Visionaries, pioneers, see the future clear. We're charting new horizons, no limits here.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Next Level Figures, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. Chris Harris has spent decades studying one of the most consequential forces in human performance, the mind under pressure. His work has taken him from martial arts and training elite personnel to sales, executive leadership, and the study of mindset itself. Across those worlds, he has pursued a question that has shaped much of his life. What allows a person to think clearly, adapt intelligently, and execute when the stakes are high? That pursuit has also become deeply personal. Harris has examined the forces that once drove his own ambition, reconsidered what strength means, and survived a brain tumor that challenged his understanding of control, resilience, and human capability. Today, his thinking is moving toward purpose, service, and what we choose to do with every experience has taught us. This is a conversation about the evolution of thought, the discipline to keep questioning what we know, and the courage to keep becoming. This is my conversation with Chris Harris, the Warrior Maker.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you finally, and I'm really glad to be here. What a beautiful studio, by the way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a labor of love, and I was trying to figure out a way where I could encapsulate the essence of America and its exploration into the world and outside of the world into another dimension, and that's hence the Apollo 11 picture back there, and the flag is, of course, our patriotic service to this country.
It's a blend of excellence meets patriotism. I love it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm so happy to meet you today. When I was doing a deep dive on your bio, one phrase that kept sticking out in my mind was the Warrior Maker. And I got to tell you, that phrase is like, I think it speaks to a lot of what men like you and me are striving to maintain or become and maintain, throughout our lifetime. What was the origination point of where you encapsulated that mindset, I guess?
Well, let me start by where I got the name.
Yeah.
For 25 years as a private contractor for the Department of Defense, and did a lot of work with U.S. allies as well. Most of the work I did overseas was with the Middle Eastern countries that we were allied with. But back in the day, I had to do kind of barehanded competitions if I wanted to win a contract. A lot of these countries are very particular about who they let have access to their special forces. And they're not big fans of our websites and our press releases and our endorsements and testimonials. They don't care about any of that. If you're going to get access to our elite, you're going to have to show that you're one of the best. And we don't care if you were the best a year ago. Are you still the best? And so I was over there basically fighting, trying to win a contract. The existing guy that they had, he was from Turkey, I believe, and his contract was coming to an end. And the only way those barehanded competitions are over is it, either you knock someone out, you make them pass out, or someone in the room, an executive, usually a general or a member of the royal family, stands up and says, "Stop, enough. It's decisive. We know you've won." And but it was at that moment when I won that particular deal, that contract. The leader in the room, the highest ranking official, said, "You are." Moving forward, anytime you're in our country, you are the warrior maker. You will be the one that makes our warriors. And that name just, it kind of stuck with me. So
That's very, very cool. Wow, that's crazy. I know other places where that kind of mindset requires, that kind of, where they handle politics a certain way and that kind of stuff. So that's amazing to be, really, really winning contracts, with your hands and conquering the person in front of you from a mindset too, because you're gonna take if you're dominating someone physically, you're dominating them mentally and emotionally too. You agree with that?
Well, I think you have to dominate them mentally first if you really truly want to dominate them physically. Admiral McRaven, when he was SOCOM commander, and even before he was SOCOM commander, when he was when he was a Navy SEAL, he coined the phrase relative superiority. And what is relative superiority? It's what makes our U.S. Special Forces, especially Tier 1 Special Forces, which would be your Delta and your SEAL Team 6, it's what makes them such a force to reckon with. And that is, so you think about an attitude. An attitude is, hey, I believe I'm going to win. Mindset is, I know I'm going to win. Relative superiority is when your enemy knows they can't win. And so relative superiority is what makes our special forces so phenomenal, so exceptional. But you can't have relative superiority. In other words, before we put boots on the ground and we are coming your way, you're staking in your boots knowing we're coming your way. So, but they don't get that mindset unless you already have the mindset. It's transferred. It's like if you're in sales, for example, when your competitors find out that you're also in the deal and they're going against you, you want them to go, "I've already lost." So, relative superiority, what makes someone really exceptional, like, I'm looking at this, the man in the arena, the one who's, in the arena, whose face is marred with blood and sweat. Think of the mindset it took to become the man in the arena.
Yeah.
I mean, to say, I'm willing to step into that arena.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's so true. That's so epic too. Like, man, this room's gonna be 10 times better because you're here and you bring your spirit and the warrior way, and that's beautiful. One of my goals today was to also get to understand, get underneath the hood a little bit, see how what your thinking is, and kind of have the audience tap into Chris Harris. And let me start off with saying this. There's a lot of books about what you've accomplished: warrior maker, the author, the executive, the mindset expert. But I wanted to start with somewhere that probably doesn't show up in a bio. Like you said, you don't want to see the bio. Sometimes you want to put that aside. And for me, that's the way I like to go through interviews too. Is like, tell me what I understand. We'll get there. But first, I want to get to the heart of them. I say, what kind of blood you bleed? I always say, is it red, white, and blue, or is it? I won't say, it's another different color. But what matters most to you about the man you've become that we wouldn't learn from reading your resume?
I think first and foremost, it's my love of my country. It's my love of my wife. We just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. It's my love of my children. It's my love of my friends. It's my love of Fort Worth, Texas. It's my love of, it's everything. It's my love of God. So, I'm a man of faith. I'm a man of passion. I'm a man of vision. I'm a man of mission. But at the end of the day, none of this matters if I'm not a man of character. And because if you're all those things and you're off, doing that 1% that you shouldn't be doing, everybody will forget about the other 99%. Let your yes mean yes, let your no mean no. So, my patriotism and my faith and my love of family, it means nothing if you strip away the character.
That's powerful, man. You know, as you were going through that, I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then when you hit character, I was like, you know, it's like that's one of those things that I'm constantly like trying to sharpen and get dialed in a little, you know, more and more every day. Do you think not only myself, but do you think a lot of other individuals are going like, I want to be a better man. I want to be a better figurehead, a leader in the community. Do you think a lot of people struggle with that?
I think a lot of people like the idea of being that. Kind of like people like the idea of being a Navy SEAL until they find out they got to do push-ups in the mud.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was listening. I was like, character. Okay, man, that's every time I have somebody in this chair, man, I always say like, they say something that makes you keep on going after that one thing, you know, that one thing they mentioned. And I really appreciate that about what you had shared. Of course, we've been going to Fort Worth a lot lately because of my affiliation with the Air Power Foundation and getting ready to go tonight to another event. And I love Fort Worth too. So I love the things you like. So I'm glad to have you here for sure. Martial arts came to your life at a time when almost everything else around you was changing. Looking back now, what do you think that 10-year-old boy was really searching for when he found martial arts?
You know, we had a saying when I lived in the boys' homes and foster care. We had a saying, and I don't know who came up with it, but it's very true. And it was, I would rather be wanted dead or alive than not to be wanted at all. And so you talk about a kid who, you know, maybe would, you know, run away from the orphanage, which happened a lot, and who, you know, would break out a car window, bust out some stranger's car window to steal a pair of cheap sunglasses that they would never wear. Why would they do that? Knowing that they were probably going to get caught, you know they were going to vandalize somebody's vehicle that they work hard to make the payments on. Why would they do that? Because any attention is better than no attention. And, you know, what I really wanted more than anything was I wanted to be seen. I wanted affirmation. I wanted to be loved. I didn't want to feel rejected. I didn't want to feel like I was always a burden to someone. But that drove me. That insecurity is what it was. What I wanted was I was born in adversity, but I was raised by rejection. And I just wanted to be noticed, and I wanted to be valued. And I couldn't articulate that at 10, but you know, that ended up becoming one of my demons, or, you know, we can call them, Carl Jung calls them your shadows. You know, in one of my books, I call them your rivals. So whether you call them your demons, your shadows, or your rivals, I don't care what you call them, but we all have them. And when I talk about being a warrior, when I talk about me being a warrior maker and I'm making warriors, I'm not making people anymore that are going out and engaging in, you know, elite close quarters combat. I stopped doing that years ago. I'm making people now who are warriors in the sense that they basically go to war with those inner rivals. And when I say go to war with those inner rivals, and I don't care if it's fear or doubt, it doesn't matter what it is. We all have our stuff. But when you go up into the attic of your soul and you unlock that chest and you let those suckers out, you know, are they still calling the shots? You know, but for me, I say when you realize you've got one of those inner rivals or demons, throw a saddle on it. And put the reins in one hand and get a whip in the other hand and ride that thing like Seabiscuit. Learn to monetize that thing. So when I was a 10-year-old boy, I was insecure. That insecurity fueled me to become one of the top martial artists, you know, in what I was doing. I mean, you know, at the time, there weren't too many martial artists who were training tier 1 special forces. So you had to break a very high barrier to entry to do that. Well, what gave me the skill to be able to win those contracts? Well, it was my insecurity. My insecurity, I learned at a young age that men respect you if they think you're dangerous. So I knew that the more dangerous I became, the more I would get that void in my soul filled with respect, admiration, praise of man, whatever. And now all of a sudden I'm being invited to the big boys table. But here's the problem. There came a point in my life where I realized that being driven and fueled to be one of the best at what I do because I'm insecure, that is no longer a legitimate reason. And so I didn't stop what I was doing. I didn't stop my pursuit at being the best at what I was doing. I just changed my why. And it was in my 20s. And I said, you know what? I'm no longer interested in the praise of man. I'm now going to do this because I believe I was put on this earth for two reasons: to protect the innocent and to safeguard the helpless. So I didn't stop training 5 hours a day, 6 days a week with broken bones and torn muscles. I didn't stop that. I just changed why I did that.
Wow, that's impactful, because a lot of people, that feel insecure, I think you're right. They do gravitate towards being dangerous. They feel like, I got to put on this big front. I got to put on this mask. And for you, is that also what you kind of had to do? Is like wear a mask? You hear that saying all the time about that.
I didn't put on a mask because I was dangerous.
Yeah.
You train that long, that many hours, for that many years. I mean, I started training when I was 10. I never stopped training. Then I'm training with the best around the world. It wasn't a mask. I mean, I was capable of great violence. I was very dangerous, or I would have never been working with the people I was working with. But what happened was I didn't let people see beyond that. That was all I let them see, because behind that was really a scared little kid in the corner.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't let them see that part. So I wouldn't say it was a mask, because I could walk the walk and talk the talk. But behind that was just a scared little boy who wanted to be loved. So
yeah, that makes sense. That adds up. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. You were dangerous, with your hands, and lethal with, the capacity that you had. When did you realize that what looked like strength on the outside was still being driven by something unresolved inside you? When did you realize that?
Oh, that was in my 20s. Yeah, and it was, I didn't get married until I was 28, and so it was somewhere before getting married, because I had to come to terms with that before I, stood on the altar before God, and made my vows to the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I had to get that resolved. I don't think my wife would have married me if I was still the man who was driven by the praise of man and insecurity and wanting to do all the cool things for all the wrong reasons. She's a woman of high character. I would have ran her off on the first date. So I figured it out somewhere in my mid-20s, but definitely before I got married. But it was just one day looking in the mirror saying, Chris, you are a badass and nobody cares.
Wow.
So, get it together, man.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Because, when I'm thinking about you saying that, I was like, when did I, when I had to get rid of my insecurities? And this was, I married my wife 6 years ago, or 3 years ago. But before that, I said, dude, just like you said, you did when you're 28. It took me a little longer to get there, having gone through whatever I went through, right? And carrying all that stuff, right? That baggage. It was like, are you able to put this stuff down and love her with a full heart? Do you love yourself the right way? Do you love yourself in a meaningful way? Do you, is Christ own your heart? And for me to get to that place too, I had to really do the same thing, is go, okay, yeah, I think I'm ready. And it's the best decision I made.
Yeah, I think it started with me just getting to know myself.
Yeah.
And then from there, coming to accept myself. So, one just came self-knowledge, self-awareness, then came self-acceptance, and then eventually came self-love. And then once I got to self-love, next thing you know, I've got the love of my life, my best friend, and now she's loving me. So, if you want others to love you, good luck if you don't love yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's 100% true. This is a unique thing that I want to ask you, because I think a lot of people, I know I struggled with this. It's like, how do you change what drives you without losing the fire that made you exceptional in the first place? Like, I know my story. I know how, what I went through, the war of myself, right, in it. And I carried that fire in a certain way, put in the wall and everything. But how do you change what drives you without losing the fire?
I don't know that I accomplished that because, what we're talking about is identity shifts. And, our ego is very protective. And the ego does not like identity shifts. And it's why it does things like, avoiding ownership and blaming others and not taking responsibility and, rejecting feedback, because the ego hates change. But, as men especially, and I'm sure this holds true for women as well, but as a man, I've experienced it personally. And, we go through multiple identity shifts in our lifetime. So, when you graduate high school and now all of a sudden you got some freedom, and then you get your first real job, and then you get married, then you have kids, then your kids move out and you're empty nesters, and then you become grandparents, and then you lose a loved one, a parent or a spouse or whatever. All of these are identity shifts, and they're part of life, and they mean that we're growing. But I can tell you that when you go through an identity shift, your why changes. And your why is that fuel, that fire, that passion. I've never figured out how to go through a legitimate, real life identity change or shift and not forfeit or surrender some of that fire. It's the price you pay for growing up. So to answer your question, I haven't figured out how to shift and grow and mature and evolve and not lose that fire, at least some of it. But what you do, though, is whatever identity you're moving into, you find a new fire. Don't think that old fire is going to carry into the new you. And you got to forfeit some of it. It's the cost of growing up.
Yeah. It's so true too, because sometimes you bring that fire into something and other people get burned by it, and that's what you have to be aware of too. It's like maybe your fire's, setting things on fire, not really, lighting the way, kind of thing. Moving so often exposed you to different, because I know I was reading in your bio, moving so often exposed you to different types of martial arts. Talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So when I was 10, my mother, she was a heroin addict and a heroin dealer. And my sisters were 11 and 12. So 10, 11, and 12. And my mom got busted for arrested and sent to prison. But she was not just a heroin user, an addict, but she was a distributor, and she distributed across state lines. So when she got sent away, it was for a while. And my sisters were taken in one vehicle with Child Protective Services. I was sent in another vehicle in Child Protective Services, and we lived in the same city for years growing up, but we never lived under the same roof again. But that was when I really started moving in with all these different foster families. But I lived in Dayton, Ohio, in the city, and you could walk just about anywhere. Dayton's not a big city, but any home that I moved in with, any foster family that I moved in with, I would always find a nearby martial arts school, something I could walk to or ride a bike to. And I would always let them know, hey, I'm living with a foster family. I don't know if I'm going to be here for a week or a month or 3 months. I have no idea. But I'm passionate about the martial arts, and I never asked for anything for free. I was always willing to work for it. And I asked if they would let me work off training. I'll clean the mirrors, I'll scrub the floors, I'll mow grass, I'll do whatever, paint. And I never once, in all those years growing up, had a martial arts school owner or, head instructor tell me no. They all had a lot of empathy, and now they made me work. I'm sure I earned my dues and then some.
Yeah.
Back then the dues to a karate school were maybe $30 a month. I know I did $30 a month worth of work. But now fast forward, and now all of a sudden I'm 18 and I'm in high school, and for my 18th birthday, my gift to myself was I enlisted in the United States military. And so now all of a sudden I'm 18, I'm going to the military, and I've got 6 different systems of martial arts that I had trained in since I was 10 years old. I had trained in the Chinese and styles, and the Japanese and the Okinawan, and it was just Muay Thai. And now all of a sudden I've got like this greatest hits album, of all of these different systems. And, so all of that moving around and living with different families ended up being a real blessing. So when I eventually created my own system of martial arts, Roku Jitsu, and ROKU is just the Japanese word for six. So Roku Jitsu, 6 systems.
Yeah.
And it was just me taking what I'd learned from 6 different styles and just taking what I thought was most effective and creating my own system. And that's what I taught for all those years. But, that was something to where, there was a silver lining, and all that moving around. What it really gave me is something that most martial artists didn't have. And that was, every few months I'm in a different system. And that gave me a very broad perspective because every system is uniquely different.
Yeah, that's true, man. My wife and I, my wife's a 4th degree
Wow.
Taekwondo. Her son's a 3rd degree. I've done jujitsu. We're big MMA fans here in this house. We got engaged at the UFC Apex,
Wow.
that. Yeah. So we have a full appreciation of martial arts here in the home. When you encounter an established way of doing things, how do you decide what's worth keeping and what needs to be changed, and what needs to be reinvented?
I always look for the economy of motion. And it's a principle I actually learned from watching some Bruce Lee interviews from a long time ago. But, the economy of motion, the shortest distance between 2 points isn't necessarily a straight line. There's studies in physics where they show the shortest distance between 2 points actually is a curve. I don't know if you've ever seen the experiment. They drop 2 balls and one goes straight down and one does a curve. And the one that does the curve actually gets to the bottom faster. So I'm always looking for the shortest distance between 2 points, not because I'm trying to avoid work, but because I want to find that flow, that economy of motion. And so that's the first thing I do is I look at whatever I'm doing and say, have I found the economy of motion here? And if so, let's lock it down and make it a best practice. And if not, let's fix it. Let's make it better. I'm not sure who, I think it was Steve Jobs that said this, but I could be quoting the wrong person, but basically if you want to find somebody who's going to do it quickly, or do it efficiently, hire a lazy person, because if you hire a lazy person, they're going to find they're going to find that economy of motion, right?
Yeah.
If everybody else is doing it in 7 steps and I can find a way to do it in 3, then now you're going to watch that person and say, well, there's how you do it in 3. And so I always look for that economy of motion, but then I always look back to my own biases, because we all carry biases. And I ask myself this, is that bias, that attitude, that belief that I've carried all these years about that particular thing, is it still useful? And if it's no longer useful, if it's no longer serving me, it goes.
Wow, man, you have some like bombs that the room gets quiet. It's only 2 of us in here, but it's like this weight that you like, this light bulb, like this, it's like sucks the air, and you get caught by the idea, the mindset, because that's what it feels like. You're dropping these nuggets of a mindset that when I go back and listen to this, I'm gonna be like, holy crap, that was amazing, So I think it's so true too, man. You get rid of the biases. Are they being useful? When I was just sitting there thinking about this, like, okay, got to go back, Rush, and you're gonna sit down and you're gonna re-examine if there's some biases or other people have biases in this home or not or whatever, and we're gonna work through that, because I think it's true. Is it being useful today? I think that's the problem with. Do you think that's the problem we're seeing in society as a whole? Like, we're seeing that people carrying these useless biases.
Well, that's a whole different conversation. But I think the biggest issue is we've lost our work ethic. My generation certainly knows how to work, and we're not afraid of work. And in fact, for me, when I put in a hard day's work, I feel God's pleasure. I love a hard day's work. I'm not a big fan of this whole, work-life balance, if that means not doing your work. Like, you work first. After you do your work, then find all the balance you want. But, the Bible says you don't work, you don't eat. So, you want to play and you want to spend time with your friends and you want to go out and, whatever you want to do it. There's your balance after your work is done. But what we've done is we've turned this whole work-life balance thing to where, I got to make sure I'm taking care of me and my friends and my relationships and my pastimes and my hobbies first. No. What do you tell your kids? Hey, Dad, can I go hang out with my friends? Clean your room. When you're done cleaning your room, then you can go hang out with your friends, right?
Yeah.
That's work-life balance. Clean your room, then go play with your friends. And so I think we've lost we've got a generation that they want to go play with their friends and then I'll come back and clean my room.
Yeah, that's true, man. 100% true. It seems like a lot of what you teach comes back to ownership, but leadership changes the equation because now you're responsible for bringing out the best thinking in other people. How do you build people who take ownership and perform at a high level, but are still willing to look at you in the eye and tell you when they think you're wrong?
For me, there's only one way to really achieve that. I mean, there's multiple ways, but there's only one primary way that you have to start with. So if you're a leader and you want to transfer, knowledge and accountability and all of these things, expertise, you're never going to get there if you're delegating task. If you're delegating task, you're not going to get there. You got to delegate outcomes. If you delegate outcomes and you say, I'm here if you need me, you're letting them figure it out. If you delegate task, they never have to figure anything out. You're really micromanaging. I don't even know if you're a leader at that point. You're a micromanager.
Yeah.
So if you want to be the leader who really can transfer the skills, that expertise, that knowledge, that wisdom that you have, you really want to transfer it, ask yourself, did I just tell them what to do, or did I tell them what to do and how to do it? Or did I just say, here's the desired outcome I want, and here's the deadline for when it needs to be done. Now figure it out, and I'm here if you need me. That's how you make real leaders.
Yeah. It's that empowerment. You give them a sense of empowerment and some ownership. Ownership? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. You want them to take ownership, then you've got to let them figure it out on their own and be accessible when they don't.
That's amazing. Okay, you have written several books.
14
books. Wow, 14.
Over 25 years.
25 years. That's amazing. Today you have a book we have this book that you gave to me before we started. It's the book of mindset.
Yep. Look at mindset.
Talk to me a little bit. Share with me a little bit about this book.
That book took several years to write, and I would start, I'd stop, I'd start, I'd stop, and because I put a lot of my personal stories in there. Here's an example of how I figured this lesson out, which made it really challenging because, I'm showing you my scars. And, but what I learned was that if I walk into a room, because I do a lot of keynote speaking, and if I walk into a room filled with leaders, I said, raise your hand if you believe that mindset is vitally, like code red, vitally, critically important. There's really not too many leaders that are going to disagree with that.
Yeah.
Everybody, yeah. I mean, I don't get a lot of pushback on that. But if you ask that same room, Rush, if you were to say, raise your hand if you could clearly articulate the difference between attitude, mindset, and a belief, hands go down quick. We all have our idea of what mindset is, and most of us are not aligned. And a lot of it is the fault of the internet. If you Google what is mindset, you'll get 10 different web links and 10 different answers. So I think the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to create like a universal, what is mindset? Because most people have the wrong idea about what it is. It's not attitude. It's not belief. It's something completely different. So I wanted to write a book that says, here's what it is, here's why it's important, and here's how it responds to change, and here's how long it takes to change, and here's what your life looks like if you tap into this. And so I kind of wanted to give you like a field manual for what it really is. So my definition of mindset's pretty simple. From the time you wake up in the morning till the time you go to bed, your day is really just riddled with stimuli and your response to that stimulus. So when the alarm goes off, that's a stimulus. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to lay there and think about your day for 5 minutes before you get out of bed? Are you going to hit the ground running? Are you going to push snooze? Are you going to be late to where you're supposed to be and start your day off in a deficit? Well, the alarm's the stimulus. So mindset is that space, that sacred space that really lives in the subconscious, not the conscious mind, the subconscious, which is outside, not below, but outside the conscious mind. And mindset is when you master that space that lives between stimulus and your response to that stimulus, which happens hundreds of times a day. I mean, you're trying to merge onto Highway 35 and someone who could let you in chooses not to let you in. All right. Well, them not letting you in is a stimulus. How you respond or react to that stimulus, that's mindset. So when I say mindset is everything, master mindset, mindset is the principal thing. What I'm really saying is, have you mastered that space between 100 stimuli a day and how you respond or react to those stimuli? And if you have, you got mindset. And if you haven't, you got some work to do.
I use a phrase, I use a phrase with my wife a lot. It's called proactively reactive
I like that.
instead of reactively proactive. Is that kind of the same thing where you're reactively?
Yes, but you got to add a very important element in there, because the only way you can really truly have mindset is if the mindset's constantly evolving. All right. Because there's no way that my, reaction or response to a stimulus is where it needs to be all the time. So what we're really talking about is having metacognition, and metacognition basically is a real fancy neuroscientist word for the ability of thinking about what you're thinking real time. So if you think about it, 95% of what makes you who you are, like let's just say your brand is not what you say about yourself. Your brand is what people say about you when you've left the room. It's what they think is, he's a stand-up guy. Oh, he's never on time. Oh man, he's the guy you call if you're in a pinch. Rush has got your back in a bar fight. Rush is the guy who's going to start the bar fight. Whatever they say, that's your brand. Well, if you want to change your brand, then really what you have to change is about 100 things. Well, those 100 things that have to be changed, like here's your current position, here's who you are, here's your future trajectory, here's who you want to become. Between those two things, that means you've got to change your brand. Well, your brand is burrowed down deep in your subconscious mind, right? How you respond, whether you keep your word in a pinch, whether you show up late or show up, early. All of those things are in your subconscious mind. And that runs on automation. 95% of what makes you who you are is automated. And right down to the fact that right now you're blinking and you're breathing and you're holding your bladder. That's all that's automated. Well, the only way you're going to change who you are in a way that really sticks is you have to be aware, wait, what is automated Chris? What is automated Rush doing or thinking or saying or reacting right now? And so metacognition is you basically stopping the automation and looking at it as a third-party observer and go, oh, no. That's not going to be how I respond or react anymore. And you disrupt it. I mean, you T-bone it at the stoplight, and you knock it back over onto the sidewalk. So metacognition is a very big part of mindset. It's how we consistently evolve. I'll give you an example. My wife and I were, we have a pool and a hot tub in our backyard, and we were in the hot tub, and she mentioned a person's name, and I rolled my eyes, and she said, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "Why'd I do what?" She "You just rolled your eyes." I said, "No, I didn't." She goes, "You did." I said, "Honey, I didn't roll my eye." And I really, truly didn't think I rolled my eyes. It was subconscious. Yeah. And then so sometime later, she mentioned that person's name again. She goes, "You did it again." All right, hold on. I'm going to have to think about what I'm thinking now. So what is it about that person's name that is making me, in my automated subconscious self, that really is who I am, that's making me roll my eyes? And so I thought hard about what I was thinking, and I realized I was holding an offense against that person from years ago. An offense that that person doesn't even know they committed. And so that's me disrupting that automation. And now all of a sudden I'm growing because now I got a couple choices. I can call that person, say, hey, you probably don't even know you did this. It was years ago. Or you can just let it go. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do there.
Yeah.
But you can't do that if you're not consciously thinking about what you're thinking and disrupting and challenging the subconscious that has made you who you are today. So if you want to improve, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to transform and improve your life in the conscious mind. It's not going to happen. You'll join the gym on January 2nd and you'll quit the gym by Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I really heavily believe in what you're saying, metacognition and subconscious mind. I'm a big believer in that 100%. I want to circle back to 14 books. How does somebody write 14 books? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you accomplish that?
So first of all, for the record, I hate writing. I absolutely hate writing, which is one of the reasons I've written 14 books, because I'm a big believer that if you really want to accomplish some great things in your life, and I mean meaningful things, and when I say great things, I'm not talking about money, or I'm not talking about any specific thing. I mean great things as what you believe would be a great thing to accomplish in your life. If you really want to do that, you're going to have to live by this motto. What I want most is more important than what I want now. And I live by that motto. And look, I have no interest in writing books. What I do have interest in is being an author. And the only way I'm going to be an author is to write books. So, So I put myself on a disciplined routine, and I basically say, all right, I'm going to get up at this time every morning, and I'm going to write this many words a day, and I'm going to write that many words a day. And if it takes me 3 hours, it takes me 3 hours. If it takes me 20 minutes because I got the flow, it takes me 20 minutes. But I'm writing this many words a day. And Chris, you hate writing, so guess what? If you want to get out of writing jail, write your damn words. And so what happens is you just write your words per day, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up and you got a book. So, the books serve a different purpose for me, but, so like right now I do keynotes, and I don't know if this is true or not, but people who are hiring keynote speakers, they put more weight into, like, if they've got 2 or 3 speakers, they're trying to consider which one of these 2 or 3 we're going to go with.
Yeah.
If one of them has written a book on the subject and the other 2 haven't, I can tell you who they're going to go with.
Yeah.
So it helps me get speaking gigs. Well, that's what I want most. What I want most is to get paid speaking gigs. What I want now is to go back to bed. So what I want, because I usually write at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
All right. So what I want most, right, which is to get on stage and have someone pay me to empower their audience with some of the things I've learned. That's what I want most. Is that stronger? Is that more important than what I want now? Because what I want now is I want to go back to bed because it's 4 a.m. Which one is stronger is going to determine which one wins that battle 100 times a day is going to determine. Look, if you want a 6-pack, abs, but you also want to eat the leftover ribs that are in the fridge, what I want most, what I want now.
Wow, that's true, man. That's so true. Like, that's so true. Like, I hate editing, but I want to be considered a influential podcast. I want to have a good ecosystem in the sphere. So I got to edit. It's so true. You spent decades developing methods from what you've actually seen work in the real world, and I think there's an interesting distinction there. How do you distinguish between knowing something works because you've seen it work repeatedly and knowing why it works?
Well, I mean, for me, because I'm a businessman.
Yeah. And that's the reason
and I learned this lesson a long time ago, because my passion, my love for a long time, it still is, but just not to the level it used to be, was, martial arts. And anybody that's out there that's listening, that's, done martial arts, earned a black belt, does, jujitsu, whatever, anything you've done, then the listeners can attest that it's really hard to make a living teaching martial arts.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And so for me, I always looked at everything through the lens of, can I monetize this idea? Can I monetize this habit? Can I monetize this best practice? Can I monetize this new, I want to get up at 4 a.m. for the next 120 days until my book is written? Can I monetize that book, or I'm just going to have, 300 copies of my book sitting in my garage, and then my wife can't park her car in the garage because I got 300 unsold books. So I always start off with this in mind. And now we're talking business, because I could talk spiritually, I could talk physically, I could talk emotionally. But let's just talk business, because it's something everybody understands.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, can I monetize this? Can I get paid? And if you can't, then is it just a labor of love? Or are you just doing it because you've got a friend in need and you're doing it for them? Whatever it is. But forget when I say monetize. If what you're talking about doing, if it could be monetized, what would be the cash proof that what you're doing is working? And maybe it's just an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Maybe you're volunteering, for something, like the Air Power Foundation, or one of these great, great causes. But at the end of the day, if you're going to spend a lot of time, volunteering for a great organization like that, you got to ask yourself, how do I get paid? And maybe how you get paid is it's filling this void of, I'm just not contributing. I'm not giving back. I'm not throwing down the rope. And I want that. I want to leave a legacy that's beyond myself. Whatever it is that monetizes that for you, identify it, and then have checkpoints. Am I getting paid? Because if you're busting your tail and doing all these stuff for free and promoting it and going to the events and raising your hand at the auction, if you're doing all that, but at the end of the day, you don't feel any more fulfilled than you did a year ago, well, then you're not monetizing it. Why keep doing it?
Yeah, so true, man. It's so true. Yeah, monetizing, and I think it comes not just in paper, but in currency,
in relationships, in love, and fulfillment, and all kinds of things.
Yeah, there's a tension in your story that I find kind of interesting. Ownership and self-reliance run through so much of what you teach, but there have also been pivotal moments when other people showed up for you. Where does self-reliance end and our need for other people begin?
If you're out there doing it alone, I have nothing but empathy for you, because anything that's really worth having. I don't know if it's worth having if you got to do it alone. Because at the end of the day, it's really about quality relationships. It's about fellowship. It's about brotherhood. It's about parenting. It's about marriage. It's about all of these things. And that I don't know that I want to do it alone. And if I've got this really big goal in front of me, but I know the only way it's going to happen is if I do it alone, I'm at a point in my life. Look, there was a point in the past I would have done it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'll just find a way. I'm either going to find a way or I'm going to make a way. There's no way I lose. I mean, at the end of the day, I either win or I learn, and I keep going. That was old Chris.
Yeah.
New Chris is like, wow, Chris, look at the body count. I mean, you got to the top of the mountain. You won the keys to the car. Great. But look at the carnage behind you. Did you really win anything?
Yeah.
Because, a lot of times it's not that we're going it alone. A lot of times it's the sacrifices of key relationships that we're making, people that we should be spending quality time with, and we're not, because we're so focused. And that stuff is okay for a season. There's times I've got to go into the cave. I got to flip the switch. I got to flip the hat around. But I let my wife know that. I let my friends know that. Hey, for the next 100 days, I'm just wanting you to know, I'm probably not going to be returning your calls, returning your texts. I'm not going to get together for dinner. I'm going to miss your retirement part, whatever. I let them know, but it's a season. There's a start and an end date. one of the things that makes Delta selection for Delta Force so impossibly difficult compared to all the other special forces selections is when you go to West Virginia and you go through Delta, and I'm not a Delta operator by no means, all right, but I have trained them, so I understand this from what I've learned from them. I'm not a Delta guy. But what makes it so much more difficult than the other special forces is, one, you're alone, and two, they don't tell you when it's over. All right, we need you to start running with that 40-pound ruck. For how long? We'll let you know. Well, where's my checkpoints? We'll let you know. And it's the not knowing. It's the not knowing that makes it's just a mind thing.
Yeah.
So for me, if I've got to do it alone and I've got to forsake, friends and loved ones then I want to know that it's for a certain amount of time and then it's over. And I communicate that clearly. Hey, I'm about to become Lone Wolf McQuaid, but for 72 days. So if you have to do it alone, make sure there is an end date, an expiration date, and make sure you communicate it, because people take that shit personally.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's so deep, man. That's so real too, I think we get caught up and we can get stuck at like we make a lot of withdrawals and not not make any deposits along the way, and then like you said, people get so upset, and you can abandon people that really are relying on you to be a source of their
Well, I love the analogy you just gave about the withdrawals. And first and foremost, don't ever ask that of someone if you don't already have equity. If you don't have earned equity, go get your equity first.
Yeah, that's true. There's a couple of things that went on in your life where you had to deal with brain tumor, seizures, and then those medical conditions. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was 4 months ago, and I've never had a seizure before. I didn't know what a seizure was, and in good health. But it was about 4 months ago, and I'm standing in my kitchen, and all of a sudden my right leg just starts shaking uncontrollably, and then my leg came out from under me, and I face planted into the granite countertop in our kitchen, and my face just now blood's everywhere, and I called my wife and said, "You better come home now," and I'm glad I did, because she came home. She ended up doing CPR on me, and the ambulance, she called 911. But anyway, they got me to the hospital and did MRIs and realized I had a pretty big brain tumor and had to operate immediately. Or the seizures, they were like, it's pressing on a part of his brain. The seizures are just going to keep coming more and more rapidly now. And so they did a 6.5-hour operation, got the tumor out. Praise God, it wasn't cancerous or anything like that. But I mean, I couldn't talk. I couldn't walk without a cane. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't drive. I mean, I'm like, well, how long is this going to take before I get, my life back? And they're like, well, first of all, we're not sure if you'll ever be 100%. Because of where the tumor was and the size of it. We don't know how long it was there, all that stuff. So we don't know if you're going to get to be 100%. They said, but if you work really hard, you could probably get a lot of it back, maybe in a year. And I'm like, well, yeah, we'll see about that. So, I did the work, and, by the grace of God and the help of a loving wife and the support of a lot of good friends, that was 4 months ago, and I'm 100%.
That's amazing. What did it teach you about control that success never could?
Well, first of all, we have a lot less control than we think we do. That's a stark reminder. I mean, that came out of nowhere. I mean, I had migraines.
Yeah.
But I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go get an MRI because I have migraines. I grew up where you rub some dirt on it, suck it up, buttercup, but it didn't teach me something new. It reminded me of something that I've forgotten. And that was, each day is precious. Each day is a gift. Don't take anything for granted. And, kind of like that Tim McGraw song, I rode 8 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. I went skydiving. It reminded me of something I needed desperately to be reminded of. And, but here's the thing about if I've got something going through my mind and I pick up on it through metacognition, thinking about what I'm thinking. And the first thing I ask myself a couple questions. One, I say, okay, is this fear? And if it is fear, I always say, okay, is this an irrational fear or rational fear? Because if it's rational fear, it's only useful to me if I'm using it to fuel action. If it's not fueling action, it's worthless. Because I don't care how important that fear is. I don't care if it's intuition that's about to save your life. If it doesn't motivate you to take action to change the outcome, it's worthless. So but then I say, is it irrational fear? Irrational fear, basically for me, it's any fear that has a low probability of happening. That's an irrational fear. Or if it has a decent probability of happening, but I'm not going to take action to do anything about it. Well, then it might as well just be an irrational fear because it's worthless. It's not serving me. And so, but then if it's not fear, okay, Chris, it's not fear that's going on right now because I'm feeling something. I'm feeling a little anxiety. I'm feeling a little stress. I'm feeling a little depression. Whatever it is, I key in on that. And I say, okay, is it fear? If so, what kind of fear is it? And if it's not fear, I go to the default. And it's usually me trying to control something that I have no control over. Those are the things that stress me out. It's either fear that I'm doing nothing about or that's irrational, or it's me trying to control shit I got no business controlling. And once I realize that what's going on, the stressors, the anxiety, the worry, whatever it is, the pressure, and once I categorize it, Chris, do you have any control over it? If the answer is no, I kick it out. I throw it to the curb. Eviction notice served immediately. Do not sit around ruminating on things you have no control over. Nothing is a bigger waste of your time that I can think of.
Yeah. Man, that's so true, man. I think you're right. It's like, is it something that you want to try to control, That I think a lot of us get caught up in that mindset. So many people. You've proven that you know how to pursue something relentlessly. Clearly, from your bio, I read it. I was like, wow, this guy just is in it. I've heard you talk differently about time, your wife, your family, mortality, and what achievement actually costs. At this stage of your life, how do you decide which mountains are worth climbing?
I don't know that I'm looking to climb any more mountains. Honestly, I've climbed enough. And at the end of the day, when you get to the top and you plant the flag and you look back and you say, was it worth it? I got to tell you, the only ones that were worth it are the ones that are tied to relationships and love and friendships. Those are the only ones that have been worth it. Look, I've made a fortune and I've pissed the fortune away. I've been on both sides. I've been in extreme poverty, sleeping under bridges, eating out of dumpsters, homeless poverty. And I flew around the world first class wearing the Rolex. I've been on both extremes of it. And I've not been on the extreme of wealth. I'd like to be, but I've had money and I've been broke. And I can tell you that at the end of the day, if I look at all those goals that I have just set my jaw to, and I can be pretty tenacious. I mean, when I set my goal to something, man, I get dialed in, I get locked in, and there's not a lot that will take me off course. But if I look back at the ones, really the goals that I've set, relationship goals, spirituality, fitness, all of these things, business, money, writing books, the only ones that I could really say were truly worth it were the ones that just advanced relationships and love. And those are the ones, because all that other stuff, when I was laying in that hospital bed a few months ago, and not knowing if I was going to live or die, I wasn't thinking about any of that shit, Rush. I was thinking about where's my wife, where's my son, where's my daughter, oh, my best friend's in the lobby. That was the only stuff. I wasn't thinking about my next purchase order. Wasn't thinking about my next book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. It's fun. I love being driven, but at the end of the day, it's not what counts.
Man, that I like that because I remember one time I was in Dana Point. I used to live in SoCal, and I was at some restaurant, and there was some memorial of this fisherman, and he had like pictures. It had pictures of people he had taken out fishing, and it was a whole memorial, and people left comments on there, and I was sitting there, like watching, and I was like, man, how many pictures do you have like that? Like how many pictures will you have in your memorial? Like how many memories will you leave? And that thing, I mean, it kind of shook me a little bit. It's like, cause I felt like I was on an island, and at the time I was living in my car and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, dude, like, all right, at least you're aware that this is what you want most, at the end of the day, is to get establish meaningful relationships with people. And so I 100% agree with you on what you're saying with that. If someone were to ask you, it's like someone said, someone come up to you and say, who is Chris Harris? Well, what would you say?
I would say that I'm not a godly man, but I most certainly am a God-fearing man. I would say that I am fiercely loyal until I'm not. I would say that principles and values and virtue are very important to me. Anyone that knows me knows that when I'm exiting, I always shake their hand, I square them in the eye, and I say strength and honor. And I mean it. But it's not strength and it's not honor. It's strength and honor, because I'm a man who firmly believes you got to have both equally. Because if you have all strength and no honor, you're a bully. And if you have honor and no strength, yeah, I'm not taking the hill with you. So I'm a man who has built his life around the principles of strength and honor. I'm a man who believes that my responsibility is to protect the innocent and safeguard the helpless. Now, I will never stand by and watch idly when it's within my power to get involved. I make it a point to never withhold love if it's within my power to extend it. I think I'm a good husband and a good father. I think I could be a better husband and a better father. I'm someone you want on your team. I'm someone you don't want to compete with. But if we do compete, just know I'll never shoot you in the back.
Man, that's awesome, dude. That is so awesome. I was going to ask you, okay, are there two questions that that you want me to ask that I didn't ask? One or two?
My favorite quote. I got a couple favorite quotes.
What's your favorite quote?
One of them is from Alan Watts, British philosopher, died in the 70s. You are under no obligation to remain the same version of yourself you were 5 minutes ago.
That's happening.
You sum it up right there.
Yeah.
Keep growing, keep changing, keep reaching, keep evolving.
Yeah.
And then the second one is from a famous psychologist, Carl Jung. And he said, until you can make the unconscious mind conscious, it will continue to control your life and you will continue to blame it on fate.
Man, I could write all that stuff on this wall.
It's deep. It's deep. Until you make your subconscious mind conscious, until you become aware of what's going on in your subconscious mind, it's going to control your life and you're going to blame it on fate. That's deep.
That's epic, man. That is so sick. Any other question that I should ask?
No, I mean, look, no one's coming to save you except for you in the relationships you've invested deeply into. That's who's coming to save you. You and the relationships that you've invested into. So, when people say, "Hey, man, Chris, no one's coming to save you," I'm like, well, that's not true. I've got a long line of people behind me that I've spent years investing deeply into. It's called equity.
Yeah.
So there would be people that came to save me. If you've got no one coming to save you, work on that.
Yeah. I have a song that I wrote. It's called "You Thought Nobody Was Coming."
Ooh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, it's all about, like, you thought you were all alone, and you thought you were too far gone, and talks about the fleet coming in to save you. Last question. Chris, the Warrior Maker has carried you through some extraordinary chapters. It helped you turn adversity into capability into achievement, and eventually achievement into an opportunity to serve other people. So when you think about the man you're still becoming, what does the Warrior Maker have to become next?
For me, it's all about legacy now. And it's what I leave behind. It's no longer what I've accumulated or what I have or what I've gathered. It's not about that anymore. It's now, I look at everything through the lens of what will I be leaving behind? What can I transfer? And now look, I throw down the rope. I'm all about throwing down the rope. But when I throw down the rope, I want to be very clear. I am not pulling on the rope. I will tie that rope around my waist. I will get in a strong stance. I will anchor. I will make sure that I never let go, and I will encourage you hand over hand until you're to the top. But I ain't pulling, because if I pull on that rope, there's no legacy in that, because I've deprived you of one of the greatest gifts we've ever been given, which is the gift of struggle. So it's all about legacy. It's all about throwing down the rope, but I ain't pulling that damn thing.
That is so sick, man. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it is so, like, when I hear these truth bombs, I'm like, oh my God, that is, you want the crowd, you want to, like, pump your fist up in the air, man.
Push the
yeah, like the play applause button. I need to get applause button in here. No, that is so sick, man. I'm so happy to spend time with you today. This podcast is called Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. And I think we've charted new horizons of brilliance today. I think, I say everyone, there's some people are at the evolutionary zone of thinking and being. And dude, that radiates from you 100 miles. Before I even walked in the studio, I was like, who is this guy? And I'm so happy to have you here. Definitely charted new horizons of brilliance, and I'm very grateful to have you on the podcast. If people want to get a hold of you for keynote speaking, where can they go? Any events that you're going to be speaking at that maybe people can attend, that kind of stuff, if you want to do that.
Yeah, just Google The Warrior Maker. You can go to thewarriormaker.com or Google The Warrior Maker. Don't Google Chris Harris. There's 300 famous Chris Harrises, and I'm not one of them. But if you Google The Warrior Maker, that's all me. And then my latest book, which came out in January, which is doing really well, The Book of Mindset, that's on Amazon. But if anybody who really wants to find me, I'm not hard to find.
That's awesome.
What I say, the evidence of desire is pursuit.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, Chris, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'm glad. Shout out to Kirk Driver for plugging us in together. Kirk is on that zero gray mentality and leadership, and you both are unique individuals and bring all this experience and wisdom and your perspective feels, and it's sometimes a little intimidating, to be quite honest with you, because you go, okay, dude, you're gonna go on this podcast and you're gonna stretch this. We want to get in there, and I hope I did that. I hope we accomplished that today. It sounds like we have, for sure, 100%, and I'm grateful to have you have your time today.
Well, you're a master at extracting the good stuff. You've got it dialed in.
Thank you.
I've probably been on over 40 podcasts as a guest, and I can tell you that you're one of the handful that really have it dialed in.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that, and thank you for your encouragement along. You know a little bit about my story, and I appreciate your strength and honor. That's a mindset that I'm going to embrace. A lot of the things that went on today, I say, whenever someone's sitting in this chair, like, I should be doing this, and just letting that come in my pocket, because I'm trying to take just to and put it right close to my heart, because every time somebody's in the chair across from me, that's what I should be doing, because I feel like, I want to get stronger by the people I'm in front of, and they're beside me.
Well, look, Rush, I think some of the greatest things you and I have to offer, for anyone that wants to listen or anyone that wants to read, is our failures.
Yeah.
I mean, our failures, they're gifts, and we're sharing our failures. But you and I, we get it. We know failure is a bruise. It's not a tattoo.
Yeah.
And you and I are sharing our failures, and you are helping whoever's sitting in this chair take those failures and make sure that others don't. It's not just about helping others succeed. It's about preventing them from making the same mistakes that the guest in this chair has made.
Yeah.
And you've just got it dialed. You're like a surgeon. So
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris. It's a pleasure and honor I look forward to reading your book for sure, 100%.
thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. As I always say, have peace and light in you, and remember that the ocean refuses no river.
Visionaries, pioneers, see the future clear. We're charting new horizons, no limits here. Creativity and passion in every move. With every step, we've got something to prove. Next level, next level. We're reaching for the sky. Next level, thinkers. We're aiming high, pushing through the galaxies, no turning back. We're on a mission, blazing a new track. Next level, come and take a ride to the future where brilliance and power lie. Jumping to the stars with minds that soar. We're not just thinking, we're building more. Out of the box, we light the flame. Feeling the future, we're changing the game. Visionaries, pioneers, shaping what we see. From the smallest thought to infinity. Bold and bright, we're blazing the way. Creating tomorrow, starting today. Next level, we're reaching for the sky.